on movements of the spine, which is always a great review because our spines are so important and often get misaligned or out of whack, especially if you're sitting down a lot, working at a computer. But even if you're doing vigorous exercises, sometimes you'll let your extremities pull the kite of your body a little bit too extremely in one direction. Some of these imperfections you're born with. If you have some scoliosis, for example, then that's something you can alter somewhat in yoga, strengthening different sides of your spine. And then some of it you just have to deal with the imperfections of your body as we start to sit and just start to feel the spine C-shaping in one direction and then back to center. We can use this as a way to come into our breath and feel one movement of the spine right off the bat. So imagine swimming like a fish, and we'll inhale, contract the ribs on the side we're making concave, and exhale, we'll just let the body spring back to the center line, wherever that may be. And then we'll inhale the other side, and then just allow the skeletal framework to spring back. So as you do this, see if you can push down into the floor with the upper leg bone and knee of the side you're C-shaping toward, to anchor that hip and that sitting bone down. For example, if I'm going left, I'm going to push my left knee away on the diagonal and to really anchor through that left sit bone, and then the rest of my spine kind of zips up from the base of the spine. So today you're really going to have to think like a fish and move your tail, your fish tail, and not just try to jam the upper body. So if we take the right fingers out, bring the left arm up, and do the same thing, but not letting that reach of that upper arm get us out of control. So extend the arm and think of it floating, filling with helium like we worked on integrity last week. Then, same thing, let's push down through not only the bottom knee, but the bottom hand. And just get a sense of the lower part of the body, getting us to C shape. Come back to center, and then let's take the left fingers down, right arm up. Inhale, engage the underside ribs, so the contracting accordion, so to speak. But make sure that that sitting bone on that left side is pushing down. And so it's not necessary to go into an extreme C shape or side bend, but try to feel where in the side body, the upper opening of the body, so the tricep is down near the hip, is getting open. And you can move and flow a little more fluidly from side to side. Again, the inhale pattern we're using to contract the underside ribs, and that's progressively, if we were to sit here and wave our bodies like flags, starts to open the side body, which is usually the first order of business in many yoga systems through poses like Trikonasana, Parsvakonasana, side body, Anandasana. And then come back to seated, close your eyes, take a few breaths. Now see if you can create some sound in your breath, and that sound will help pattern the verticality of the spine that we're all trying to arrive back at. Now let's take our hands, and today's going to be experiment day, not like other sessions, of course, and we'll go right off the bat, we'll go right into a headstand. You ready? So we're going to push the crown of our head, elevate it right up into our palms. Let the arms relax a little. And so if we were trying to lengthen the spine by elevating the crown of the head and feel the whole spine lengthen, the sit bones press down. And then go ahead and take a forward fold. You can either place your hands in front of you, you can go down, make double fists and place your head down. Or if you have a chair nearby, we'll be using chairs. Halfway through, you could fold your forearms over the chair. So find a position in your forward fold which allows you to keep that sense of length in the spine that we got with our hands up on top of our head. And then we'll come up and take a strap if you have it. And if not, you can bake it with a towel. And just to give you a preview of what's going to come in a little bit, I'm going to lasso our mid-ribs like so. So I got a pretty long strap or a towel, then we cross the strap like we're a package or a present, and we're going to tie a bow. I'd say about 3 inches below the shoulder blades, mid-ribs. And then you can just start to use the turning. So pushing if I want to go over to my right, extending, pulling the right arm. And so have you ever used, I don't know if you've ever used or seen how they start fires with a stick and a rope, and they spindle the rope side to side to move these vertical stake, and it creates friction. So we're just going gently here, seeing how we can use the ribs and whether there's any creakiness, crackiness. And then we'll take the strap, the cross strap in front of us, and open the loop a little bit, open the cross overhead, nod our chins forward, and just tie a bow behind our heads like that. Okay, and then you're going to just drop the strap ends down the back, and you can grab the tails. I'm going to spin around so you can see this, because it's fun. We've got cross strap, and you're just going to gently pull down, not too much, and that's going to rotate your shoulders back, shoulder capsules. You can let the head relax a little. Again, don't overdo it, so you'll yank yourself back, and suddenly you've got a brace or support for the mid-back. So you've got a way to counter the actions of computer work or seated work. Some people just tie this off in front of them, and they have a ready-made shoulder brace, and they can sit and do their meditation. So feel how the shoulders now can be used in this manner. We can take the straps once again and do that same rotation, pushing away with the arm opposite to the direction we're rotating. So this is self-chiropractic warm-up, where you're just feeling how the shoulder rotation and the muscle behind the shoulder, which we're cheating and assisting, is going to allow us to work with the mid-back and the upper back. But we're getting ahead of ourselves because we haven't even done our low back. So let's remove the straps for a second, and let's go on to our backs. Just feel how you feel so far. Even with those simple exercises, you might feel like, the spine is feeling better already. Let's go on to our backs and take our towel rolls and have your straps handy. And we're going to make a towel roll depending on how flexible our low backs are. Not so much, less, and fairly flexible people who have hip flexors that are fairly elastic can go more, but somewhere around the 3-inch, 4-inch range. We're going to get onto our backs and just lift our hips up and set that towel roll in the small of the back and slide it forward to the sacrum. And just take the arms out to the sides like wings and begin to inhale, as we've done many times. Glide the sacrum forward over the towel roll, which creates a little arch or extension in the back. And then exhale, allow the hips and the sacrum to tilt back toward you. So just starting to use your tailbone, or rather the muscles around the tailbone, to come into the two classic patterns that yoga uses quite a bit, cat and cow or sacral tilts. If your head is on the sticky mat, you may want to experiment taking it so that it's either on a towel, another towel, or on I have a wooden floor. So when I start to move my hips and my spine gets dragged and my head gets dragged, the head can slide. Otherwise, your neck can suffer a little bit if it can't slide, if you're really making some nice sacral tilts. So I just thought I'd mention that. So from here, let's stop and simply make figure 4, the right shin over the left, and we'll pull the figure 4 package into our hands, threading our right arm through the upper leg bones around to the left shin. Left hand joins it. And then just gently engage figure 4, pushing it away from you, trying to level out both hips. So if you're flexible enough, you can keep your left hand on your shin, left shin, take your right hand and take the palm and just gently press into the top of that right hip, that right leg, so that the hip points are level. Let's release that figure 4 down to the ground. We're going to drop the figure 4 over to gently over to the left, and we can hold the right ankle with the left hand and then roll our gaze and spine in the opposite direction. You should be getting a little pressure on your piriformis muscle and the left hip, the down hip. And then carefully bring the knees back up and cross or sandwich the knees together. We did this on Friday. I can't remember if it's Friday or Wednesday. We've got the right knee directly over the left, like right at the beach. And then we're going to pull the knees in, hold them, and work that right piriformis. All for the low back. And then we'll simply switch sides. Make sure your towel is symmetrically distributed as you take figure 4 and then collect it. The right shin coming toward you. Once you've got a grip, let the legs engage away from you. And if you're flexible, you can take your left hand to your hip, top of your hip, and just glide that left hip away. So sciatica and those syndromes are sometimes caused by some asymmetry in the lumbar. And this is a classic go-to pose. It's good for me on the left side because I've got a little pinching in there. And then we'll drop the figure 4 away and just roll it to the right. Maybe look over to that side, grab your left ankle with your right hand, and then just gently spiral the gaze the other way. And you can feel a little pressure on that outer hip, the medial piriformis. And as we come up, lift the right knee off the ground first,
and tuck it behind the left. And just take your upside down Gomukhasana. Holding the shins, breathing in a little sandwich. And then we'll unwind and find our straps. So now I'm going to take the strap around the feet and extend the legs up to the sky. It's really our first forward fold in a way. And we'll take the feet about hip width apart. We'll lasso the feet. And we're going to look at our toes and spread the toes and arch the arches of the feet, pulling the toes back, reaching through the inner heel. And make sure your sacrum is just in that sweet spot where you've got a little bit of arch in your low back. The sacrum is moving forward, but not excessive back bending and not excessive rounding. So the feet are pushing a little bit away, like you're holding on to two kites or a tandem kite. The arms are long and holding the extension of the legs. Then there's a little bit of outward movement of the feet and the legs. See if you can feel that all the way down to your sacrum, as if the pelvic caps are moving apart. Let's pull on the strap now and bring the feet together. Supta Baddha Konasana, and you can walk your hands higher up the strap. Gently bring the feet toward your chest. Scoop the belly in and just broaden the fibers of the low back. And we'll take about 5 breaths into each one of these. If one of them feels particularly good, you can stay. From here, we're going to go out to Happy Baby and separate the feet like we're riding on a horse. Get a little outward pressure, mostly for the sake of the low back. You can play from side to side if it feels good, taking one leg a little longer out to the side and the other. Getting in touch with the low back, how it's feeling this morning, and then straddle split out, pointing the arches of the feet straight up and letting the legs move away from you so the sacrum's just rolling over the top of the towel roll, and just check in with your low back. Make sure each leg is pushing with equal pressure and creating space in the hip joints. All uses of the legs to work the low back, the low spine. And now we're going to take the left foot solely up to the sky. And the right knee, you're going to keep it bent, even if you could extend it forward, don't. And then you're going to reach the opposite arm. So the right arm is going to come way up the strap ends. Close up to the foot as you can. And look at that left leg. And then what we're going to do is just pull with the arm, right arm, at the same time to counter that action. The left leg is going to try to move in the opposite direction to the left. So again, kind of an outward, out pressure, out stroke of the left leg, but the right arm is tethering it. And we want to feel that all the way down to our left hip, as if we're able to separate or create space in the left belly, the left low back. Let's bring both legs up into the strap briefly. Make sure the spine, the SI joints, the low back feels symmetrical. And then we'll drop the left foot down, keeping the left knee bent. We'll reach diagonally across to the straps as high as we can go with the left arm. And the right leg is going to move a little bit away as we tether it and resist with the pull of the left arm. So let the leg get some work here, strengthening the outer hip, which is going to create space around that sacral area in the low back. If you have a labral tear in your inner hip, This is good therapy. And then if we take both feet up again, we can take this one step further. This is all low back repair. And now we cross the strap. We've got a strap around the arches of both feet. And now we cross the strap, make a little cross, and we're gonna push the feet outward and then pull the cross straps away. So we're creating tension. And don't overdo it, but you should feel your outer legs engage. And you want to lengthen or feel a sense of lengthening in the inner leg. Okay, so take a peek for a second now. I'm going to make a strap loop. I already had mine, so I kind of cheated. And I'm going to, it's a fairly tight loop, maybe a foot. And I'm going to loop it around my feet down to above my knees like that. And you can cinch it in such a way that your knees are slightly, or they feel slightly narrower than your hips, but don't go too narrow. Have some space between your legs, and then we're coming into this supported bridge. So readjust your little towel roll, or if it really is not feeling like a great support, you can omit it or reduce it. As we come into our sacral tilts again, you have the action of the strap. If you don't have a strap, you could just take your hands to your outer legs and push out into your hands. It's just gentle moving out of the upper leg bones away as we do our tilts to and fro, and feel how the actions of the legs can assist in opening some space in the low back. And then bring the arms a little closer toward your mat. You can even grab the mat corners or the sides of the mat with your fingers and pull it apart to roll the shoulders back. See what I'm doing? Digging my fingers under and just pulling apart. And then I'm gonna just curl the tailbone off the mat, but I'm gonna push out into the strap as well. So both the upper arm bones and the upper leg bones are moving apart. I relax the throat, don't come up too high. A slight retraction of the backs of the legs. And make sure I can breathe. And then come down and try that again. Tilt the hips forward, arch the low back on inhale. Exhale, curl the tailbone and push out against the strap. So let the strap unify the legs. And again, this is good for me because I'm right side dominant. My right leg wants to do all the work, so I've got to remind myself to work in the left leg to strengthen that left hip. And then come down. Let's do one more of these. It's more comfortable to let the arms be soft. Keep them soft. Let the back of the neck lengthen. Here's again where I like to be on my head on the floor so that the head can slide and keep long. So from here, just come down with the feet. You can take a few breaths, either with the knees bent, or if it feels okay, you can slide your legs forward and start to flex the toes back toward you, push out into the strap, take your arms up to the sky, and then reach back and take like a big yawning expression. And then see if you can goal post your arms. You're going to bend the elbows. Again, you could have your knees bent, or you can have your legs straightened. Some of you could do this more easily by coming off the towel and just laying down on the mat. We have a little voguing goalpost move with the arms. And if you can, with the legs straight, you're going to point the toes forward and hike the arms overhead, like stick them up. That's your inhale pattern. As you exhale, drag the elbows back toward the shoulder level and pull the toes back toward you. Simple move, kind of. Inhale, stick them up arms. Lift the chest, point the toes. Exhale, press the heels. Pull the toes back and retract the upper arm bones. It's like a weird sea creature. And again, I have my head, even though it's hard, on the wooden floor. You could have a towel underneath it. But if it's on the sticky, as you kind of draw and quarter the body, so to speak, it's a little, it can be a little hard on your neck. So I'm just moving the upper body and the lower body with that outward expression as we move into the mid-back. So let's slide, crawl the knees back toward us, the feet, and we can hug our knees before we come out of this, making sure that that extension was not too brutal on the low back, and we can then slide the strap off of our upper leg bones. Let's just take one more repeat of that one-legged exercise, left leg up to the sky, right arm holds and push that left leg out to the left. And then we'll do the right leg, just so you remember this one, it's a good one. And at this point, some people can have both legs extended and not have the down leg bent. Really good opening the low back there. All right, so let's lift our towel rolls up and out. Lifting our hips will roll off to the side, and then we'll come up and do some more. So the first thing we'll come into on our hands and knees is child's pose. And if you want, if you're having low back pain, you can, as you've seen me do before, you can make a little bit of the roll into your belly and just drop down. What this does is it creates a little wedge between the upper leg bones and the lower ribs, and it can spread open the low back. So this is the flexion pattern of the spine, or the rounded action of the low back. Depending on if you have injuries, what your low back injury is, you have to monitor or know flexion is good for you or extension, if a disc is moving in or out. So I'm trusting you to have some intelligence with that. And then let's come up, and as we've done in the past, double up our mats, kind of a mild-mannered Monday, and take our towel rolls to the, hopefully you have a wooden floor, and as we sink the hips a little bit down, we'll extend the arms forward. Then exhale, come back to hands and knees. Inhale, glide the towel forward, drop the head within the arms, allow the tailbone to drop. And we can go to diagonals. One side and the other. So most yoga poses, we want to have the ideal combination of protecting the low back, keeping it mostly in a forward fold in flexion. And then to get the mid back warmed up, extending the arms in different planes of travel. Let's come back up. We can use our towels to sit on under the calves or directly under the tailbone, your choice. And let's take the strap again, just as we're working into the mid back, and see if you can find that long position between the hands, and we'll start to lift up and back and then forward. So we'll do our extension, inhale,
So the arms are diagonal, keep lifting the shoulder blades up, and then flexion. Essentially cat and cow. And see as you do this, whether you've gone to the muscular action in the arms or whether you can move like a fish and rock your sacrum like we did initially on the towel roll when we were on our backs, and let that movement of the sacrum rolling forward then come up the spine. And then the tucking of the tailbone initiate the down motion. That's different, and it requires some development of some muscles that aren't always in place. Then the arms soften a bit, and the spine is able to sense a little bit better. And can you remember what we did with the wrapping around the body? And we're going to wrap our straps around our midribs like that. And just rotate the ribs, pulling on the opposite arm. Often you'll just get a nice chiropractic adjustment, but don't go too crazy. And then we'll take the cross straps forward, creating a little hole we can tuck our heads under. Take that loop behind us, close the loop, and then just drop it behind the back. So you have to have a pretty long strap. And this alone is hopefully worth the price of admission, because as I pull on the curtain rod, I have the shoulders in a nice rolled out and back position. So imagine if you had this as a yoga teacher or adjustment, and you come forward, letting the shoulders pinch forward, and then you pull on the strap, pulls the shoulders up. Ah! And then you start to go down and curl. And then you pull, head is last, on the strap ends. Ah! Automatic mid-back support. And it starts to train the scapula, moving apart as you pull, and then moving together as you come up, which is kind of nice. Let's take that off for the moment. It would be interesting to do a whole practice with that configuration, but some of you may not have the straps that are that long, so let's start to go into some extended poses now that we've warmed things up. We'll take our towel rolls back toward the wall, and we're gonna cat and cow our way into downward dog, spreading the fingers, plugging in the thumb bones, and see if you can feel that same glide in the shoulder blades and mid-back that we had with that strap. Then we're going to come up into our first down dog and just step our heels, the arches of our feet onto our towel roll. Bend the knees quite a bit. Shake the head and lengthen the arms forward. Drop the tailbone just a little bit. And draw the belly in. And then coming down to hands and knees. From here, we're going to stand up and grab our chairs. And if you have a wall, that's great. You're going to set your chair up near the wall with the seat top, like so. Before we get too far along into downward dog, getting excited, we're going to take our chair dog and taking the hands at the top of the chair, sitting in our squat, similar to what we just did. We anchor our tailbone down, but feel those upper legs, leg bones still pushing out as if they're a strap around the knees. And just sit here. So the more you sit down, and you can take your hands lower in the chair, you're working in the low back. More like you're going to come down to Malasana, which you could as well. And sit here. So if I wanted to do an extended Malasana, I take my head to the top of the chair,
drop my low back and just stretch the low back here. See if you can do that for 5 or 6 breaths while I grab water. Then you're going to come up and down from chair dog to Malasana. So even though it's probably very easy for you to do this, if I drop down and then I come up to form a right angle with my body, I move from the low back, dropping down, anchoring, stretching, to a mid-back stretch. So I come up, straighten the legs. You may need to walk them back a little bit. Take the hands to the top of the chair, the sides. And then I start to push down through the heels. I move the upper leg bones apart. And I launch the side ribs forward. Feel the shoulder blades glide broadly apart and energize the legs. And breathe. Again, if you were here last week, we were using the image of a kite expanding in all directions. So let's bend the knees again. Take the hands to the top of the chair. Come down to hands and knees. Let's work a little bit more with the shoulders and the mid-back. I'm going to turn around so I'm not being rude. And we'll take the hands of the forearms on top of the seat of the chair. So normally when we do dolphin pose, or a downward dog, we're piling a lot of weight onto the spine. So we're going to just go easy today, and so we can feel things. And we can take our fingers together and clasp them. Take our elbows to the ends of the chair. If you have a hard chair, you may want to pad it. Or if it's slidey, you could even take your sticky mat and bring it up onto the chair. Like that. So now you have a sticky mat chair. So from here, we're going to set up dolphin pose by just looking down and starting to drop down into our, almost like a child's pose, sinking the hips down, dropping the tailbone, moving the upper leg bones apart. You can place the head on top of the front of the chair in front of your, or within your elbows. So sinking down, same time you're moving your upper arm bones apart, a little bit forward. So now we're going to just crawl the knees a little closer, curl the toes under, and lift up to dolphin pose on the chair. You can maybe rest the hairline on the top of the chair. Walk your legs in if it's too much. It's more like a forward fold. Pull the belly in. You can bend your knees, scoop your belly, and let the head drop progressively through the arms as space allows. As you start to open the side ribs. And there shouldn't be a lot of pressure on your shoulder capsules. So we're working that mid-back, and then we come down. And let's see if we can take the elbows down as we walk the knees back, clap the hands together, and once again place the head on top of the chair. Sink the hips down, and we'll just start to get a mid-back lengthener as we sink our hips down and resist with our upper arm bones pushing down. And then go ahead and come up. Now, advanced students, if you want to try the next movement of the shoulders, you're going to take your forearms actually together with the palms up to the sky. I've got this nice chair back that I can hook my fingers into and a low lumbar support on the chair.
But if you don't have that, it's okay. You can just
extend your finger. Then you just take your head inside your biceps, like a massage table,
and spread the shoulder blades apart. Just sit the hips back and lengthen the mid back. Hardcore folks, you're welcome to come up
with the straight legs, and then extend the whole spine forward. Push the forearms forward. And you're going to bend your knees
down and release. So take the chairs aside. Let's take either a child's pose or a down dog, normal, and see,
particularly as you get to down dog, if you have any opening in the mid back. Should feel a little more open now as you stretch your fingers forward, move your shoulder blades apart, and let the legs open up the mid back. Let's come forward and just come to easy cobra
as we move the spine in the opposite direction, and get your hip points down in a comfortable way or pad them. Come onto your forearms. Just look down at your parallel forearms, dropping your head, and drop your tailbone. So we've covered this before, but even if you were to just glide your eyes forward on inhale and then down on exhale, and you can make, if you could make a subtle body awareness of the same cat and cow patterning that we normally do on hands and knees, by just subtly shifting the eyes and the head in tandem with the lifting of the tailbone and the dropping of the tailbone. And even though this is a very slight movement, if I start to really press the frontal hips down as I drop my head and energize the backs of the legs, the hammies, the glutes, I'll start to get some work. And the ultimate expression of this pattern, if you were to take an exhale and drop your head, press your frontal hip bones down, lower your chest a little, is to then fly back toward Shalabhasana. And then you can extend the fingers back and lift the gaze forward. Let's take the hands down, drop the head, and shimmy from left to right. Let's roll on to our right side body and take our head on top of our right arm for Anandasana. If you're near a wall, you can stack your legs. And we did this pose at least a few times last week. So we're moving into the lateral body. It's a great place to start. And you can use your left fingertips on the mat in front of you. And make sure your head's comfortable. So if you need a towel support under your right ear, you can. If you want to take your back of your head to your right hand, that's the other way to do this pose. So make sure you're not compromising the neck. Some people like to split the difference and just take the forearm behind the head like that. We'll glide that left foot up high on the right leg. And what is this but a C shape? So I've got the gentle contraction that we started with in class. So if you wanted to come down and try something fun and come out of this pose for a second by just making it easy for yourself, left foot can come in front of the right leg or behind it. And we'll take the left arm up to the sky and reach up like a kite, expanding. So how do I get C shape? So if I take that left hand right across the top of the skull and just dig the fingers under the skull to support it, and inhale, I just
C shape, contract the left ribs, lift the head, and exhale down. So this is a lot of work. It's a very simple movement. But for me to contract those upper ribs is a revelation. So go easy on that. And then once you have that motion or that notion of the upper ribs contracting, it may be easy for you to balance or easier in this pose and perhaps take it further with a strap or your first two toes, fingers around left toes. I'm having difficulty speaking this morning. And still, I want to have that lengthening of the downside ribs and slight contraction of the upper ribs. Now, if I have a scoliosis on the left side, I don't want to overdo it. Instead, I'd work on the other side, which is where we'll go now. Come over to the left arm and make it comfortable. You can always take support, towel under the head, and just start easy. So if you can get your left heel to the wall, it's more stable. And you can take the right foot either behind or front of the extended left leg, pushing the heel of the left leg into the wall, lengthening through that left arm, and then reach up like a kite and start to bring some extension into the mid-back. We could play with this contraction of the right side body, just hooking our right fingers on our head. Inhale, just use the muscles along the side body, contracting to lift the head. So don't just pull on the head, that would be really bad. You're just gently holding the head. It doesn't have to work. This side body work is vital. And so even if you're one of these people that does this Anandasana like so, you'd want to support that lift of the head first with the contraction of those side ribs. So this is all engaged. Come into the pose to your degree. Maybe a strap, but you've got that attenuation of the right side ribs. Let's come down and place our heads on the ground. Glide our hands back behind the shoulders and make the shoulders come forward in the wrong pattern of Cobra, and then inhale, come up into Bhujangasana. With the tailbone moving downward and the progressive lifting of each set of ribs. So if you're here, and you're going to lift up another set of ribs, and then another set, and then another set, and then rolling back to child's pose. So if you do that pose and your low back feels crunchy or compressed, it generally means that you haven't set your tailbone down to the floor. One more downward dog, and we'll try to keep the best of both worlds, bending our knees and dropping the tailbone. And then as you straighten the legs, move the tailbone toward the heels and move the chest toward the palms. Full extension of the spine, the same way that we put our hands on top of our head and push up and forward with the top of the head. Walk the feet to the hands and take forward fold. You bend the knees to your degree, just drop the head. And as you forward fold, most yoga teachers will tell you to roll your inner thighs together and back, which is fine, but it can collapse things into the hip area. So remember the strap, the action of the strap around the upper knees. I want you to move the upper leg bones apart. Push them apart. It's immediately going to create space in the inner arches of the feet. Sometimes I'll even take my hands under the inner arches of the feet like this and feel like I'm lifting from that arch. This becomes our next quest to drop the hips, Utkatasana, and stand. So let's grab that chair now, and we'll start to play a little more into standing poses and this action of the inner legs. The low back can have a little more sensory awareness. And I think Anne's here today, but she had a question about lifting the knee up, just this action. And Anne, I'm not sure I got you right, but she was saying something about lifting from the back body. Her ballet teacher was telling her to come up. The muscles, the primary lifters here, if I were to grab my tights inside my leg, are the psoas muscles. Go from the inside of the leg through the belly and anchor to the low back. However, if I have my chair here and I want to take my right foot up, if I were to slide my right hand down my low back like that and scoop under my butt like that, I would be, that action might be helpful for you to help lift the leg up, rather than kicking the butt back and lifting the leg, which might pinch the low back. So let's go ahead and step up into that chair. And then we'll start to open out to the left, taking the left toes to 90 degrees. So if you want to take your right hand to the wall like that, and open your left arm out, I want you to feel both sets of ribs about the same to start. And then we come into a chair side angle pose, taking the right forearm down to the front knee, and reaching that right arm up. And you might get all the way to the wall, you may not. Now, particularly for imperfections in the spine, it's important to, as I've said in the past, not collapse in these underside ribs, but to lengthen them as well. So really press down through that left heel and then come up. But let's square the hips now by turning the left toes in. And you can either hold the wall like that. If you didn't have the wall, you can take your hands to your chair. And all I want you to do, you can keep your right hand either to the wall or the chair, is just gently start to see if you can come between a side angle orientation, rotating the left hip to the left, and then spiraling toward the chair. And this may seem kind of easy as I pivot on the ball mound and then on the heel. But what I want you to feel is this wrapping in the subtle muscles of the inner left leg. So I'm going to grab my tights like this and pull back. And what you are developing, you can even do it with your hands on the wall or one hand, and the fine muscles that allow the inner thighs to scissor in and wrap together and then opening. So if you were to do 20 repetitions of this, get really strong inside the legs. And some of you can come into a revolve side angle and taking the left forearm, I've now wrapped my sacral muscles into a little package, still scooping this right hip under so I don't jam it. And then I come up. So this is a kind of a safe way to feel the fine muscles supporting the low back. And then the rest of the spine benefits. Okay, so let's try the other side. And again, how do you lift your leg? This isn't really the agenda for class, but if you just take your left hand to the small of your back and slide down and forward like you're bowling, that may be a helpful image. So let's turn out to the side, turning the right toes,
Now we can feel the opening this inguinal area. We can open our arms, keep the hand on the knee, and then we're going to take our side angle. So I want you to feel these are basic poses. I want you to feel what's going on in the low back, hips, inner legs. As we set the base first, then we start to move up the spine. Because if there are imperfections down in the basement, so to speak, they'll play out in unfortunate ways. This pose may be simple modification, but if I were to stay here for 20 breaths, I get plenty of work. Moving the tailbone toward the back heel, lengthen the mid-back, ah. And then come out and square your hips to the wall, turning the right toes in. You can take your hands to the wall, fingertips, or maybe just to the chair. And now if you were to pivot on that back foot and see if you can just work the muscles which wrap that right thigh and hip in. So in a way, this is a mild form of the sacral cat and cow, the sacral tilts we did earlier. The inhale is more of an extension, opening pattern. Exhale, a slight curling, wrapping into the dropped tailbone action. This is really somewhat subtle, but when you learn how to wrap into this pose, then you can take the right forearm over that left knee, and then maybe move into Parivrtta Parsva Konasana. And then we come out, stand and feel how you're doing in the legs so far. Let's take the chair away, and we'll come down to hands and knees again, and just move into child's pose to make sure any imperfections are modulated. And coming up to hands and knees, take your downward dog. Then step or jump the feet to the hands, lengthen, place your hands on your shins, and fold. Chair pose, inhale, and then standing. So one more, again with the chair. And this will be super important. We've kind of done it before, but it'll point to even more so imbalances in the lower back and the sacral muscles around the sacrum and the lumbar that even in the past pose, prior pose, you may not have been able to feel. So now I'm in a different way doing the same movement of opening and closing. I've got my left hip and sit bone on top of the chair and the right knees moving toward the ground. And I could eventually, if I've got the chair the right height, so shorter folks, you can put a towel roll under your lower shin so that you can have the right shin drop to surface, which you can launch from and push down, and the left hip is supported. So again, when I started, I had the right toes curled under, and I'm just opening, learning how to open and close this right pelvic half. So now that I anchor that right shin down, push it into the ground, feel this right low back descending, reach up with right arm. Similar to what we just did. So this is so much more subtle, I find. Then we're going to take our lateral bend. But make sure you don't become disengaged
from the right low back, pushing down through right shin, leaning over. Then you can just glide that right arm across the front knee and rotate into a twist, a third spinal pattern. But we haven't altered the base, so we're using our chair to keep ourselves honest. And if you wanted to take it further, you can hold the seat back, lift the chest as you push down through both the left sit bone and the right shin. Getting these basics set allow you to do the extreme poses that you might want to do, but you don't really need to. Just having the setup of these actions we just did, 1, 2, and 3. That leads to the extreme games poses that you see people doing, like so, without getting unsafe. But who needs that on a Monday morning? So let's try the other side. And again, if you can't get I have fairly short legs actually. You can't get your left shin to the ground, take a towel roll. But first, you're just gonna feel the subtle muscles that move the pelvis in together and apart, pelvic halves. Then we can kick the left toes out, square off, reach up with the left arm as we push down through the left shin. Get our length, get our extension in our spine, crown of the head, and then start to come over. I like to take the forearm to the back of the chair and just gently pull. But don't pull out the roots of the low back. Now I'm getting a lateral stretch, I'm getting some work, some compression, some contraction in the right ribs. As I pull my forearm on the seat back, come up and come across the body for my twist. Pushing still down into the floor, the left shin. Then I can take this further if I want, but I am just twisting from the mid-back. Lifting the chest as I push down into the chair with the right pelvic half. Again, this could be a strong movement in the core as you press down, which is often lost when folks go into the extreme poses. Their hips are uprooted and they destroy their low backs. Any further movements into extreme poses, often what you'll see, just to show you what's bad, is a lift of this right hip up, taking this sacrum out of whack. And then people try to just wind into the pose, not having set the hips. Sometimes a little will go a long way. Now that we're in our chairs, let's take our feet out, come into the close, widespread feet like happy baby, and we'll just drop our heads. Again, have a sense of the inner legs, the sacrum. This is a good low back stretch. Make sure your inner thighs can support it. Some can grab the chair with their hands and start to work the mid-back. And then gently release. Crawl your hands up to the knees, and then come off of your chair. And we'll take a forward fold with straight legs. You can use your strap or otherwise. Take your chairs aside. Lay back with the option, and I saw Hillary on the board, so I have to throw this one in. It's her favorite. Plow modification. with a pretty big towel roll, as we had earlier, you're gonna get pretty close to the wall. Your head is about, 3 inches. Lift your hips and take that supported bridge, which everyone can do and feel good about. Some can just take the legs up to the sky, or Viparina Dandasana, and others can glide the feet back to the wall, bending your knees, letting your hips tilt back toward you. Sure that towel roll snugged up into your low back, and you get a nice stretch of the low back. And you can hold your feet. And then when you're done, gently glide the legs down, lift the towel roll off, and before you come up to seated, just gently drop the knees with widespread feet one way, and then the other, unwinding to spiral pattern. Curl over to the side, come up to seated, and finish off. So that's the preliminary movement for the week. And as you sit, just take your sit bones back, and then feel your tailbone drop down between the sitting bones like a post into a hole. Feel the side ribs. Now they should be